Good morning and welcome, Daryll Blackall, a good friend of mine, one of the most dedicated educators I know out there. Probably the most dedicated educator. He's the principal and the president of Workforce Academy in Orlando, right?
That is correct, sir.
And you started the school, right? You yourself started the school from the ground
Well,
up.
actually, this no, I can. I wish I could take credit for it, but no. This school started 2004. A gentleman named Ken Hartsaw. He's still our CEO and founder, and retired Army veteran, and a good friend of his is Carl Morrell, also an Army veteran. We're looking to start a school back when charter schools were not as popular as they are now. And it really took a little bit of arm twisting down there at the school board to get it to happen. But they knew that there was a gap, right? They knew even back in 2004 there were kids that needed to work that weren't college bound, and they needed to find a trade and a skill. Because both these men, being Army veterans, were like, look, in the Army, you didn't, you had to just be good at your trade, at your craft, right? And you could move up the ladder and do well and make money and retire, right? And he's like, why can't we take this model and move it into the real world? And that's kind of how this whole concept got in. Um, these gentlemen are probably 15 years my senior, so they now they are there when I call. So when I say, hey guys, have you ever had to deal with this or whatever, and they're there for that. And that part is really cool, and and I appreciate them. They support us, and they really do take care of us. So I wish I could take credit for it, but no, it's Mr. Morrell and Mr. Hartzell that really put this concept together.
Well, it's an incredible initiative. You've run with it for many years. So whether you were the
Yes.
founder or not, you are the person that's running it now. And it's just for me, education's everything, right? And then when we get creative with education is everything. So this is like you said, this is an A/B schedule. Kids are getting their degree as well as providing for their family, as well as are able to go to class at night or go to class during the day. And this was something we really needed. Then quickly you had mentioned, I'm just going to say quickly, I want to make this point that it was when charter schools wasn't really popular. And I
Right.
just had on my podcast the other guy, a guy named Saul Spady. His parents initiated the fight for charter schools in Seattle. And it took like 20 years for them to get the legislator to agree with it. And their initial victory was about 12 years into the fight. And then the following year, the legislator overturned their success story. But charter schools, in and of itself, is an incredible approach to education, right? And so my kids are in a charter school. Before that, they were in a private school. Literally, the charter school is a better system by no stretch of the imagination. It's just been better for them. And so, is charter schools in all 50 states now, or are we still fighting the fight in some states?
As far as I know, I believe they're throughout the 50 states. You know, the with the turning point was, or what I feel is that when people stopped seeing charter schools as competition and started seeing us as partners, and I think really that helped. Um, the ones that like our niche schools, like workforce, where we're super small, right? And we really just want to try to help those kids who are below grade level, the ones that are maybe too old for grade, those fifth year seniors, those kids who are trying to work to keep the lights on at mom's house. So we're kind of that niche school, but also too the good that we do is that we're able to save that kid from early withdrawal, a dropout situation. But then we can help the other traditional schools graduation rate, because otherwise these kids are going to drop out and go to work. And so If you would notice over the last couple of years, Florida's graduation rates keep climbing, and I think it's because of charter schools. Because one, we're taking these kids in and getting them to graduate because we're not 3,000 kids, right? These kids don't get lost, and they can get the help they need. They can get that individualized help, and so. And then these kids go out and become, productive citizens. And now that the public schools are really buying in that we're not competition, right? We're really there to help you. And then so they have bought into that. They have bought into that fact. You know, right now everybody's hurting, right? I mean, Dr. Vasquez said, look, we may come up 8,000 more kids short next year. They're already talking about school closings, or not closings, but putting consolidation, putting them together, and that's tough, because elementary and middle schools sometimes are neighborhood schools, and now these kids got to get on a bus and ride a little bit, and that's hard, and that's hard as a parent, because man, I got four kids. I get it, right? You don't want your kids bust out of the neighborhood, but also too, I understand the logistics that education is a business, and so you have to, at the end of the day, you got to be able to pay for that bus, because schools aren't just schools anymore, Coach. You know that, now we transport, we feed most all the students. Man, we buy clothes. We do all kinds of stuff that I don't know if schools were intended to do right at first, but now here we are, right? It kind of just it's the path that education is taking.
And it's really a good path because when you think of what you're doing, so we had this conversation with, I remember it was Bill Mathias, and we had it with, and it was like even some of the schools now have washers and dryers.
Oh,
Now, and
absolutely.
yeah, and so like you said, yeah, there's a cost. I mean, you can't discount the fact that there's a cost for washers and dryers. There's a cost for lunches. But when you think of these kids who are actually getting meals and not feeling that sense of school of food insecurity, that's going to
Right.
change their life significantly later on in life. So there's this enormous return on investment as well. So, and that's just great that, and like you said, now you've got kids that do have to just say, you know what? I can't keep going to school. There's no food in my house. My mom didn't pay the electric bill. I got to go to work. But then they
Right.
have you to say, and I don't know how we're going to talk about how you get the word out to the schools and stuff, but you don't have, like you said, you don't have that lower school coming up the ranks to your 11th, 12th grade. So you have to get the word out to those schools that you need more students because, like you said, it's a business, and in order to fund your business, those students are bringing in revenue from the state.
That part is correct. And to answer your question, Coach, how we get the word out there is, of course, social media, just like everyone else. We also use flyers. We do mail outs a few times a year just to remind folks we're here. But 21 years of it being in the business. I really think that a lot of it comes, hey, my cousin went to work for us and got him through, right? And they got him through, and now he's, doing this. He's a plumber, he's an electrician, he's a truck driver. Um, and so that word of mouth is coming around. We actually have our fourth second generation student where their parent went here back in the early days, 2004, 2005, and now their young person is their child is coming to school here because they said, no, no, that's where I had to go to get my act together, and now I need you to go there to kind of learn these life skills, to learn these how to get that job, how to keep it, how to progress through the channels. And I tell you, it's been a great ride, man. I'm proud of this piece.
So, and I'm so excited about this. Here's a question I have for you, and granted, it's a moonshot kind of question, but like you said,
Yep.
Orange County's coming up short students, and they're consolidating schools. That also means they're consolidating jobs, right? That does mean that some teachers, however you look at it, are going to get laid off. It's just the only term I can think of. How
Right.
would you? when people come to Daryl and they say, "My God, you're doing this incredible job, and you've had it all the time, and we want to expand this initiative," and then you say, "We don't have the teachers, or we don't have the administrators to do it." Well, we've got teachers that are now getting potentially laid off because of the shortage. How would they suddenly find the knowledge and the ability to do what you do? How could they be taught to be the administrator and the proprietor or the initiator of a new charter school like Workforce Academy? How would they transition into that role now that they are facing the fact that as the job they have as an educator is no longer there?
Okay, so that's a great question. So, we have been trying to give this model away for, man, I know 10 years, right? Um, but it's hard, Trip, because you got 11th and 12th graders, you got this A-B schedule that you're trying to make sure that they're coming to school and getting the educational minutes that they need, that butt in the seat time, and it's in trying to find the jobs, because Trip, we burn through jobs because our kids, um, uh, recently, I would say in the last 5 years, they'd rather be at the beach. They call out. They don't do what they're supposed to do. You put a pickle on the burger, and instead of saying, "Yes, ma'am, I'll fix it," you use some colorful language, and now that customer's mad, right? Our kids burn through them. And so in a lot of places, this school couldn't work because it's not big enough. There's just not enough industry. There's not enough jobs, right? Um, so but in our bigger communities, we've been talking about it. I went to the charter school conference this year and presented our model to other charter schools, and I know there was a couple in South Florida that if they don't pick it up, or if you don't see this get picked up in South Florida, I'd be really surprised, because the questions they asked, um, how to get the model presented to the school board. Those kind of things. When you start asking those kind of questions, you're trying to build it, right? And so, um, I really think that it won't be long, and you'll see schools like Workforce Academy, at least in South Florida, where they can where they have the jobs and they have the interest and they have the same socioeconomic issues that Orange County does, right? Where we got young people who are when you got rent $1,600 and lights to keep on and food to put on the table, and so, we think that this is different, right? But if you go back and look at our great grandparents, right, they had a full-time job when they were 12. They were either working in the field. They were, hell, we were killing off kids in coal mines. We were doing all kinds of things. So as much as we'd like to think we progressed, the socioeconomic part hasn't. Kids are still working, right? And a lot of times they're working because they have to. So how can we help them, one, make that job count, right? Because I always tell my kids, I don't want you to have to work in 30 minutes to your funeral, right? I want you to start working. If you're going to work now, pay yourself first. Start putting that money away. Look at that 401k. Start looking at different investments that you can do and make your money work for you instead of you working for money your whole life. That whole working because you want to instead of because you have to changes your whole outlook on life, right? So that's just some of the things that we just try to beat home in the couple of years that we have them, because we know that it's tough, and we know it's always been tough. We may have technology to help us get through, but life's always been a little hard, and it's been a rough around the edges, and it treats us all kind of badly at one point or another. What are we going to do it? How are we going to respond to it? How resilient can we be? How can we not be soft and let a negative interaction with a person or someone telling you no? If someone tells you no on a business idea, maybe that's just the first step of negotiation, or do I just take my idea to someone else? Don't just always quit. So
So this the
um,
old saying goes, the sale begins at no. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to say the sale begins.
no, you know, don't no isn't always the answer. It may be for that person, right? And it's the same with my school when I give my speeches out there to say this works for us. This works in Orange County, Florida, right? And there are some people that I see go, no, it wouldn't work for me. It wouldn't work in Brooksville. It won't work in, whatever. And I'm not mad. I just know that there are so many kids that can benefit. They can graft the hell out of a line trip, but they can't write a check. They can't mail a letter. They can't, and we need to get back to some of that. We need to get back to some of that life after high school piece that is so important.
That's always my point is, and then I remember you said when you went to that conference, it went incredibly well, and I'm just like, how does Daryll get the point across more, 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 more? How does he do it? Is it the do other podcasts, do my podcast? I wish I had this opportunity when I was a kid, and it was
Oh,
just
no doubt.
it wasn't out there. Just wasn't. So when you say, like, for example, um, people are saying it won't work here. That's the one person that says it won't work here. Then you have another person that says, how do we do it? How do we
Right.
present it to the school board? You're like, I
Yeah.
know now they're serious. They're like really getting down into the micro of this, not just where do we build the building? How do we get started? And and um and it's just such a great way to go about it. And so the other day I interviewed a woman named Dr. Nelva Lee. She's a Georgia candidate for Georgia super school superintendent,
Okay.
a conservative. She's got incredible initiatives. And I don't know that she knows about your school. We didn't have time to talk about it, but that may be a person to reach out to. But one of her initiatives she talks about is in Missouri, and I think it was in Missouri. They went from number 30 to number 3 in public education because they initiated a public education Montessori system. And
Right.
so and so I was like, how do we do that? How do we make Montessori possibly a charter school system? Like in Florida, it's charter schools work very well in Florida. And Montessori, when you think of it, really gets the kids that are really fumbling around in grade school, can really change their life, their entire life, because they suddenly, like you said about your award ceremony earlier, they suddenly feel like they're succeeding now versus
Right.
going from one classroom to another and just completely lost. Now the education system is enabling them to succeed. And I'm always like, how do we do more and more and more of all of this? Dr. Nelvali was talking about vocational schools, including things like medical coding or and plumbing and stuff like that. How do we do more and more and more of this? And it's just like you said, there's these conferences. Is there also a need for federal funding? Is there also a need for state funding? Because education is basically funded by the state. So, how do we come to the realization that the return on investment, because all we ever focus on is all the bad going on. And I'm like, my podcast is focused on all the good. I talk to the greatest people in the world doing sorts of great stuff. And I'm always wondering, how do we expand it? And this is one thing that for whatever I got left in time, I'm trying to beat this horse that we need to get this thing going on a bigger scale.
It is absolutely correct, Trip, because I'm telling you, you find what you look for, right? I mean, I'm kind of a realist that way, that if you go and you're looking for bad, you're looking for an example, if you're looking, you will find it. I guarantee you, you will find something because that's what you're looking for. But if you like you with this podcast, you are trying to present the positive, and you are finding those people who are willing to sit down and talk to you and go, absolutely, there is so much good out here that sometimes I don't the bad is easy and in the lazy way because you can complain about the bad it's like complaining about the weather. It ain't going to change anything, but you can complain about it, right? But doing and seeing the good sometimes takes effort, right? And you have to be willing to put forth that effort, right? You have to be willing to work with those kids maybe it grew up differently than you did, or those kids who don't, that are a little rough around the edges, right? That use those colorful languages, and you wonder if they kissed their mom with that mouth, right? Those kind of things, right? But once you get in and you start explaining, I found with our kids, you start talking about investment, you start talking about money, you start talking about the difference between rich people and poor people. Sometimes it's as simple as a plan, and you start breaking it down for them into things they can understand and not just use economic terms, right? Then all of a sudden they start understanding, and you start building those relationships where these rascals will call you on Saturday, right? And they'll say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this," right? Um, and all that is well and good, and you've made some inroads when that happens. Um, and with me, this is something that I would love to have, right? I would love to have a school, a senior high school, that also has like a Subway and a KFC attached to it. And you let me run those franchises with the students that go to this school, right?
Right, right.
Let us run this franchise, right? Let us do that for you, Subway. Let us do it for you, PepsiCo. Let us do it, and let my kids, one, they're still going to school, they're still on campus, but now they're learning those job skills, customer service skills, money handling skills, inventory skills. All those things are being in front of them every day. You know, but how do with today's security, how do you get a franchise to buy into being too close to a school? Anyway, there's a lot, right? But I'm telling you, it's just a thought, right? Just a thought, but I'm telling you, uh, if we could do that and start having kids, um, start taking on these trades, and still not having to sacrifice their education, they can still get a quality education here in Florida, but still too, they can learn job skills, they can learn money handling, they can learn those things. And I think that little piece would be my mecca, right? I'd love to have one. Will it happen? Probably not. There's a lot of moving parts, but it sure would be awesome.
Well, I do think it happens in a way. All I've ever done is really worked in restaurants. The podcast is all new to me, and the whole political activist, I guess you would say, I like to call myself a social entrepreneur, is just 10 years now. But really, and when I was a manager, I used to tell kids just that. Look, this you may not even care for this job, but the truth is here, you will learn life skills, you will learn multitasking skills, you will learn communication skills, you'll learn all financial skills. I mean, you've got to cash out at the end of the day, and this isn't. And so, what I think it's an incredible idea to have those operations on your campus, and we should have those operations on your campus, and we should also have incentives where the kids can do other things outside of those operations, like learn on their own financial skills and get
Oh,
some kind
absolutely.
of incentive based coupons or gift cards to go eat at those restaurants on your campus. And I'm the same one preaching the same things. Like, why don't we? And I keep saying, listen, you're going to pick up the news today and you're going to see something the president did, or you're going to see something that the other side of the aisle counteracted, right? What you're not going to come to the realization is that America is the petri dish for most good things in the world. We are definitely, whether we got our shit together right now or we feel like we don't have it together at all and it's worse than it's ever been before, no matter what, we're turning out great success stories every day. Every day. And just like you said, we're doing that with our kids. We're doing that with teachers that are spending time with those kids. Kids don't always listen, but they're always listening. And then, like you said, they call you on a Saturday. So my particular story has always been like I was a kid, I started a small business, right? And then I
Okay.
met this guy who owned a General Rental. I was stripping and waxing his floors, and he told me take this. He gave me $500. I did it on a Sunday because the store was closed on Sunday, and
Hmm.
buy Home Depot stock. I had no idea how to buy Home Depot stock, but if I had listened and I found a way to do it, I'd probably be sitting on a gold mine right now,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So this was before Home Depot. And what's so funny about the whole thing is really the irony of the whole story is that Home Depot opened up less than a mile, and they got into the rental business and they shuttered him. There was no more general rental. He couldn't do it. He couldn't compete with Home Depot's rental operation. They would buy more equipment than he ever had. They would invest
Right.
anything to shut him down. It didn't matter because ultimately they would get they would get their money back. But so we see that too, where big business is consuming what little business used to be really good at. Sure. Then we get politicians who are saying, let's tax the billionaires and this and that. Well, how about we just make people a part of their success stories, like you said, with investing? It's why be, I mean, don't hate the game, love the players. You may be the next Jeff Bezos.
Oh, absolutely.
There is only one now, but they're a little bit, if we would have done what we're talking about 40 years ago in our school system, there would have been 100 internet retailers. It's just that one guy understood all that it took to get it. He was the IT guy, he was the marketer, he was the
We talk about Amazon, but we forgot. I mean, there still are thousands of Etsy dealers, right? I mean, there are people that are right now making stuff in their basement and selling it on Etsy, thinking that they are the next Bezos. And you know what? They might be.
they
I
may very
am
well
never
be.
going to tell them no. I have a young person that's interested in producing, being in a clothing line, who wants to make his own clothing line. And he's like, Coach, everybody keeps telling me this is just, pie in the sky, whatever. And I said, look, odds are it's tough. That's a tough business. Margins are low. Production is usually somewhere where they only make 7 cents an hour, whatever. I said, but I said, Under Armour started in a dude's basement, right? So don't ever tell yourself that I can't do it, right? Now, there may come a point where it may take you years, it may take you a couple of failures to get it. I said, like JC Penney failed what, 5 or 6 times before it ever took off. Sears was a they would sell it on trains, sell watches on trains. So you'll see it morph. You may think about clothes today, but then tomorrow it may be shoes, or it may be belts, or it may be an accessory. I said, so don't sell yourself short. Just always think about where I can go, right? So don't, find out where you can get your capital, who's willing to back you. Make sure that you're always, right now your name is your brand, right? So don't screw that up, right? Don't get caught doing something stupid, right? They're just little things that we always try to teach our kids. It says, it's the little things that matter, but don't quit just because you would be one in a million. It doesn't matter. Be that one in a million. So it, it's it's all about the coaching and what information you can give.
Absolutely. And Phil Knight's a great one of those stories where the basement thing, he was making his Nike shoes in basements. And he
Yeah,
himself in his book, I loved his book, right? He had an accounting background. That was his thing. He was really an accountant. And he never had faith in his product. I mean, basically, if you read his book, you understand he thought it was always going to fail because the banks would stop giving him money. We had
right,
these enormous challenges with government regulation. He even got fined by the U.S. government for bringing in shoes from somewhere and not paying the correct fees, and
right.
that could have leveled them right there. But it's like you said, don't quit, keep going, get your background at a young age. That's what Robert Kiyosaki says. In order to succeed, you have to have knowledges in certain things, financial, taxes, insurance, and then you can really and then you can and so that's why I keep saying like Daryl's charter school is what we need more and more and more and more open-minded teachers and approaches. And we've literally got a thing where teachers are going to get laid off in Orange County. That's for sure. The consolidation is happening. Whether they've implemented it or not, they're putting the
Right.
plans together. The consolidation is happening. I was concerned about it because I feel like we lose good educators every time that happens. But how do we create a momentum where these educators, and same thing with the Department of Education. A lot of them are could be very skilled at at a smaller school. And
Absolutely.
smaller schools are the answer for certain. In Groveland, Florida, where I am, they're building community-based schools where kids can ride their bikes to school. And I love that idea. And Dr. Nelva Lee had great ideas. That's what this whole podcast is all about. Is how do we get back to solution-based thinking rather than Epstein files and and then
Man, the easy stuff, that's low hanging fruit, man. I really want our next generation to already be thinking about their generation, right? You know, and I think this is something, and I know it's a little sidetracked, but um, I think this is why we get outcompeted sometimes by Asia, or we get outcompeted sometimes is because, the Chinese have a 500-year plan, where in the United States we only have a plan until about the next election cycle, right? And so we don't really think long term, and I think that really bites us in the tuchus sometimes because we don't have that long term plan. And I think when you start telling these kids, hey man, don't plan for you, plan for your kids, right? Start planning for those. If you're going to build a business, build it for your kids. Then, how are they going to run it? And you start adding that extra wrinkle of how can I make this last for a long period of time, right? Um, and if we start doing that better, because I'm not saying we don't do it. I'm just saying if we can do that better and think past the next election cycle and think 100 years down the road or whatever, I think that's super important.
well, yeah, and like you said, when we think about China's 500-year plan versus our 2-year plan, I always
Right.
love to talk about General Electric. General Electric was this amazing company, right? Amazing manufacturing business. The CEO even got voted the best CEO in history. Then suddenly
Okay.
they realized that they were in the wrong business. They were in banking more than anything, and they plummeted. But the CEO after him got back into manufacturing, doing what they do, and they never switched gears back to banking again. And now the stock has gone up 172% in the last few years, right?
Wow.
America, we go from left to right, back
Yeah.
to left. We switch gears every 4 years and every 2 years. So no matter what we've done, whatever success story we've had in the last 2 years, we'll get reversed in the next 2 years.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and that's just an issue for our overall picture. And that's one of the things I say too is try to get that point across to kids is don't get caught in the idea that you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. You're an American and be
Yeah,
open-minded about your politics
absolutely.
because those guys are working together behind the scenes. They've got an agenda, and it's not really beneficial to most of
I
us.
was gonna say it doesn't include you. Right.
No, it doesn't at all. I keep seeing that, and I keep saying that. I'm like, look, you can think Democrats hate Republicans. They don't. They're just waiting to
No,
get back in power and take advantage of some of the things Republicans
ab
instituted, like the
absolutely.
president's more powerful than ever. They're not hating this guy right now. He is their
Mm-mm.
crash dummy, and these Republicans crash dummy too. But we need to know what's going on, not just pick a side. And but to that point, again, to get to that real success story that we're looking for is through education.
That's right.
And that's it. Like they say, I don't know what tomorrow holds. I know who holds tomorrow. I always kind of repeat that one little
Yep.
slogan. But the truth is, we need you getting more of these schools open. Like you said, you went to that conference. You said it went really well. What else you got planned on your agenda for as far as future seminars and stuff? Anything in
So
particular?
so we do that every year, right? We do that every year. Where we go out and we present. Um I've been kicking around doing the national conference, which may be fun, but um it's just expensive, right? So it is what it is.
Go
So
figure.
So trying to do that it can trying to get on that agenda could be a lot. So I probably won't. But what we do is we have we have decided that we can do like little local like farmers markets to help promote the school a little bit more. We have our own YouTube channel now, so we're talking about just doing like little workforce updates on a YouTube channel.
That's
So
great.
that way you get to see us. And it's not just me all the time because people, they're like, oh, it's just that guy. He's just a salesman or whatever. But that way I can get my teachers involved and do those kind of things. Because my teachers are what make this place happen, right? I may be the one that's lucky enough to take the time to talk to you, but man, my teachers are amazing, right? They are in that classroom every day dealing with you. Okay, let me just put it this way. When you have a 3.0 student, right? Their behavior, their look at life, their look at a lot of things is going to be different than that 1.2 student, right? The one
Absolutely.
that, so they're going to come with a whole different set of survival issues. So I got a whole school full of 1.5s. So how do I get my message through to them that I need to get you from 1.5 to 2.0? I got to get you across that stage. Now, and what that means is you can't come in here dropping the F-bomb all the time. You can't be in here addressing everybody using the N-word. You can't be doing these kind of things. And our teachers are like the referees in there. They are teaching that lesson and trying to teach those manners. I mean, we've gone I know it sounds weird. I mean, we have parents, but a lot of times we teach manners, right? We have different luncheons that we put forward, so it teaches you how to sit at a table with a placemat and your silverware, and how to put your napkin in your lap, and how do we pass things at the table properly. We go through all of these things here because I want you ready. So you're not, when you go to that job interview and it happens to be the job interview is at a luncheon, I want you to be able to be ready for that. I want you to be able to go to a restaurant where you're not looking up at the menu, you're looking down at the menu because your expectations are different, right? Um, and to be prepared. What happens if the food comes out wrong? How are you going to act, right? And your boss is going to watch your reaction. So you have so much to teach these folks, and it's not just English. Put your comma here. There's so much more to it. And I think now with AI, right, that you don't the life skill piece becomes even more important than the rote memory piece, right? You and I, when we went to school, it was all rote memory, right? We
Yeah.
had to memorize our times tables. We had to memorize, pi r square. We had to memorize all those kind of things. I before E except after C, right? We had to memorize those. Where now, Trip, they have this
It's all
computer
there. Yeah.
in their hand. And it's like, hell, I can tell you my childhood phone number, but I can't tell you right now my wife's phone number, right? And so because it's already in my phone. So so that my rote memory has changed, and just like their rote memory has changed, it's there. But how you behave, how you interact with other human beings when you are in a social situation, all those things matter. And because you only have like less than 1 second to make a first impression, how you dress matters, how you carry yourself matters, how you square your shoulders when you walk in that room. Where are you looking, right? Are you making eye contact? Did you do your homework for that job interview? Do you know what the best-selling thing that company sells? You might want to know that going in there, right? There's things that I think we need to, as schools, maybe start to worry about. how do we make that 100-year plan? How do we form this um, cultural behavior, right? What is our new norms going to be? Because we always see the crash outs, right, on the internet. So how do we make less and less of those? How do we cause that situation to become not the norm, even though I don't think it's the norm, but
It's
how
more
do we
often than more often
yeah,
than
it's more often than I'd like to think, right? Um, because I've experienced it and I sit back and I giggle, right? I still go to Walmart for entertainment. But you see it more often than you would like to. So how do we change that? How do we be the change we want to see, right? How do we do that? And I think and this is where you're 100% correct, Coach. It's education, right?
it's all through education, 100%.
Whether we're teaching manners, whether we're teaching two times two is four, whether we're teaching whatever, it's all about the education. It's the key to the next door. And it don't even matter what the next door is for you, right? But you got to know something before you get there. You sometimes you kind of already got to know what's behind that next door before you put the key in the lock, right? So how do you get that information? Um, I tell you, we've been
It's true.
working at Valencia, and I have to give a shout out to Valencia. They are doing a lot right now for industrial industry kind of certifications. um, they have they are, and we're looking into this like a dual enrollment program. So it's like dual enrollment, but our kids are going in for carpentry, construction, plumbing, and OSHA. So they will still come here and get their education for that piece, but then they'll leave here like at lunchtime and they'll go there and they will work on some kind of trade skill, right? And so that and it's they'll get a credit, even though it really, I don't know if it would lead to an AA. There's still a lot of groundwork going on, but it is going to be for me. It's exciting because it's just another path for our kids. Anything that I can do to get our people, my kids, right? I always call them our folks, right? I feel like Moses sometimes, but I want to get my kids ready. And I also want them to be better, right? As a parent, we always want our kids to be better off than we were, right? How can we help these kids get excited about what the next chapter holds, and not, oh, I'm just going to be in this government house my whole life, or I'm going to have to battle. Oh, they're changing the food stamp program now. How is that going to affect me? Am I going to be hungry now because my mom isn't going to go volunteer those 80 hours a month, or what is going on? And I want them to be see the big picture, that they are enough, they are capable, but they have to do it off the couch, right? You have to get up, you have to go to these opportunities, you have to train yourself and get that education and be ready to go, right? And take them as they come. We know that 90% of life is showing up, and you want to be on time and you want to do those things.
So
So,
that's one of the things you just mentioned was Valencia's initiative on vocational school, and I
oh,
was
I
talking.
love it.
Oh yeah, and Dr. Nelva Lee, the candidate for school superintendent in Georgia, conservative Republican candidate, is talking about vocational schools being a part of the public education system. And it's just so significant because just like what you said about the life skills, about sitting at a table and with plateware and glassware and
Yep.
real silverware and knowing how to act, I guess just to summarize really, knowing what to do is such an important step in life. And knowing that one simple step about going to a job interview and just like you said, grab your phone, Google the company, and get some facts, whatever you choose to remember. I used to
Right.
work in this really fancy restaurant at the airport. It was in the Hyatt Airport. And they had this enormous wine list. I could never learn the whole list because they would only give me a dinner here and there, but I would learn three wines. And no matter what that night, whatever they had, I would just pick out three. And no matter
Right.
what the table said, I sounded like I was a wine aficionado. They didn't want to hear about all 100. I would
No.
spiel all three. And I remember one time I spilled this wine and they bought it. And then they said, "What else do you like?" And all I said was, because really I was the guy that didn't know enough. I said, "I do have one more bottle of the one you just liked." And the guy said, "You never order the same bottle twice." And I just was like, I never knew that was a rule. And everybody at the table laughed. And he goes, "It's not." And actually, one person said he's an idiot, which I didn't partake in that part of the conversation. But it was crazy because they paid with four Black American Express cards, which I always was fascinated with when I got one at a table, and they all split the check four ways, and they each left me an extra $200 on top of gratuity. So I was like, this is my biggest night ever. But all I
Right.
really did was apply myself for all total of 7 minutes. I can remember three bottles of wine in 7 minutes.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
I can't do the whole list in a lifetime. It's not my interest. I'm not. It's like saying I'll never be a brain surgeon. But I could do that much. So this kid that goes to this interview can do that, but does he know that that's an important trick to do? And I don't know that he knows that. And getting that point across to every kid, go a little prepared for a job interview, is a significant step in life. And then, like you said, like when you talk about your teachers teaching these kids these skills and having that, Hershey's school for underprivileged kids
Yeah.
has parents that are like what do you call it? They're a part of their school, like storm
Right. They're like
parents,
dorm parents.
dorm parents.
Yes.
And I would love to see that be a part of the system, our school system, as far as bringing in retired people that aren't doing enough during the day to keep their minds activated, and get them involved in our school system. And I've always had these far-reaching ideas. And well, like you said, when you talk about having the national conference, it just brought to mind. I think I'm going to try to email you. I'm going to email Dr. Nelva Lee this interview and see if I can get the two of you on together and kind of
That would
broaden
be
out.
awesome. That
Yeah,
would be
because
a
she was
privilege.
incredible and she really wants to. She's going to run. She's probably going to win. I'm very hopeful she does because she's got this, like you, she's got this incredible mind for education. And we need to be more innovative about our approach to education because we keep talking about the same K through 12 system. Yes, I got it. It's very important steps we take, but we're not doing enough.
We're in a battle for these kids' imagination, right? And so if we keep going back and doing things from the 50s, 60s, 70s model, they're never going to be able to hold muster, right? Because those things don't interest this generation, right? So we need to be able to capture that imagination, and this imagination that we're dealing with today may only last 10, 12 seconds at a time, right?
Right.
So we have to grab that, we have to grab their attention quickly. Now they may sit there and play a video game for 10 hours, right? But so then how do we do that? How do we make them want to come to math, make them want to come to science, make them want to, and that's on the adults in the room, right? That is not oh, these kids just need to shut up and learn. No, we need to grab these kids' attention. We need to be real with them. We need to find new innovative ways to get and hold their attention. This is why some teachers are so successful and the kids gravitate to them, and some are like, and the kids are like, man, I ain't going to Mr. Johnson's class. That guy, man, he's boring. He just hands us a sheet of paper and it says fill in the blanks, and I'll sit here for 40 minutes and then move on. And you got the other teacher that's dressing like Thomas Jefferson, right? And he walks in there and he engages with all the kids, and so it's about how do you capture that young person's imagination, right? And you may not be able to look, if you got a kid full of 30 kids, if you can get half of them, three-quarters of them to really buy into what you're teaching every day, man, you're a champion, right? So it's about just trying to capture that imagination, trying to keep moving forward. Read as a teacher, as a principal, I read all the time, right? Because I have to. I got to know what's out there, what's new, what may be working, trends in business. I look for trends in business so that way I can share it with our kids to let them know. Because I'm not a fear monger, but here's my biggest fear, right? The kids that come in here and say, Coach, I'm going to be a truck driver. And I'm thinking, man, that's going to be awesome for the next 5 years. Then after that, those damn trucks are going to drive themselves. So what are you
That's
going to
happening.
do? So,
Yes.
so I need you to be able to be the guy who can program whatever's in that truck to make it go. I need you to be able to work on that truck and do something with the navigation to do something that's not bad on your back. And so that's where I always try to tell them, okay, see your job in 5 years, then see it in 10, see it in 15. What are you gonna do? And is that job still gonna be there? Because you know how fast technology is moving. So how can we make sure that you're going to be an old man and be able to and to be able to still provide for your family or do whatever. So it's always a challenge.
But
And
it's such an
it
interesting challenge, and it's so fun to be a part of it. Even though I'm not a teacher, even though I'm not an administrator, even though I'm not the guy that's been at the Workforce Academy, I'm a part of it now. And I think that same enthusiasm could come with could be instilled in a lot of people that could get more involved in a part of our education system, like the older people, like I said, that could volunteer and stuff. But you have to have the okay first, or the
right, right.
yeah,
And
you
you
have to have
you
the
know you
insurance
and you have to
regulations
be
and
confident in that you're going to get the support right from your school board,
right.
from your you got to get that buy-in. And once you're confident, like I know my founders, they support me, um and they back me. They back me. They know sometimes I'm a little emotional, enthusiastic, and I try some stuff, and it works sometimes it don't, but they're all right, as long as I have the student's best interest in mind whenever I try something crazy, then we're all good, Look, Trip, I'm gonna load 20 kids up on a plane in March, and I'm taking us all to New York. So um, we are going to go, we're going to walk around the city. Half these kids haven't even been to the airport, let alone been on a plane, right? So if you've never been through that TSA experience, Lord have mercy, that's just something for the record books, right? So we are flying, we're going to fly nonstop to LaGuardia, get off, and we're going to tour the city. And these kids, I would say 14 out of the 20 had never been out of the state of Florida. So this is all going to be new. They never ate a hot dog out of a cart. They've never been to half the things. We're going to go walk the Liberty Island. We're going to go do those. Everybody knows the Statue of Liberty from a picture, but and now you've walked the island and you've stood in front of her and you've seen the harbor, and you know I think that is so important, and I wish I could do it for all of us. I wish I could load the whole school up and go, but that just cost prohibitive. So that's where I think that we just have to keep doing things like this in education to expose our kids to make better humans for the 21st century going forward.
Absolutely, and you're the guy that's going to do it. And that trip sounds amazing. I am so happy for you. We're going to talk about that trip after the trip. I'm also going to get Dr. Nelvalee. I'm going to email her today. I'm going to get this interview going. Record it. It is recorded, but I'm going to get it to her. I'm going to let her know that I know Daryll Blackall. I'm going to start doing that, combining interviews, because like you said, I want to have these conferences, these discussions more, 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 and more, because there's so much good going on that I just want to focus on that. I want to
Right.
block out all the nonsense. And this will be a big part of that.
I tell you, man, there's so much work to do that I think there's room on this train for parents. There's room on this train for administrators and doggone teachers. And there's just a lot to do. If we're going to really be ready to continue the United States to be the leaders in art and music as well as industry and finances, that we have to show that, right? We have to prove that, but we have to start exposing our kids to let you
I,
know that you don't have to make a choice, right? You can be a great financial wizard and still paint, right? You can still do these things, but sometimes that message gets lost, and we just have to keep pounding it out there the most ways we can.
Absolutely. We're gonna beat this horse to death, because I really think we're on the right track. Me, you, and lots. I've got so many guests I could think of that I've already interviewed in this last year that all agree we're on the right track, and we're accomplishing a lot of good, and we just need to keep that momentum going and block out. Just like you said, painting, you can be there's a president, a retired president that's an artist now, and he's done some really cool stuff. I mean, I've seen his art in museums already twice now. And I'm like, it's traveling the country. I seen it in Houston, Texas, and I seen it right here in Florida. And
That's cool.
George W. Bush, he draws
Yes,
wounded
sir.
soldiers, paints wounded soldiers. Daryl, this has been incredible. I know you have a whole school to run, and I know I could talk for hours. Believe
Yeah,
me.
me too. But I know I got to keep moving.
All
So
right, so thank you so much, Daryl Blackall, Workforce Academy, the principal. I really appreciate having you here. I love talking to you, and we will do this again. Thank you,
thank
sir.
you so much, Trip, and I will talk to you soon. Anytime, brother. You just
I
let
will
me know.
email you because
Send me
that's in
some
the.
dates.
Yes, yes, I
It
will.
will it will make it happen.
We will absolutely. It was incredible last time we did it when we combined four you,
Yes, that was
Bill,
a great
Matthias,
show.
and uh, uh
The gentleman who's the mayor of Mineola,
right. How did I?
uh,
Now
so
he's gonna be.
and he was
He's gonna
running for
hopefully
Bill's seat.
Bill's seat. Bill's stepping down. Yep, yep. So
Yep.
we're gonna. All right, Daryl. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Love you, brother.
I love you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I love you, brother.